Most people look across the vast lakes of Tennessee and only see their pristine beauty. Quiet, shimmering water, with the rolling ridges of the mountains reflected perfectly on the surface. But beneath those waters, deep in the cold, silent depths, there are roads, churches, cemeteries, homes, and entire communities. Places where generations of human lives were lived, loved, and ultimately forced to depart. Some say more than history was buried beneath those lakes, and others say it never left. Welcome to Haunted Hollers and Eerie Encounters. I'm your host, Stormy Skies, where I guide our exploration into the deepest shadows of Appalachia. Tonight, our focus shifts to a landscape defined by water and memory. In episode 12, The House Beside the Water, we explored local stories of an abandoned home beside Chilhowie Lake. Tonight, we dive deeper into local waters and explore what still remains. Imagine you hear a sudden knock at the door. Imagine being given a mandate. Everything your family has built here for generations must be abandoned. Imagine the extreme grief these communities suffered at this proclamation. The land farmed by their grandfathers, the churches where families had been married and buried for generations, the very soil where these ancestors rested, all slated for inundation. Across Tennessee, thousands of families received exactly those words. To understand why these lakeside areas are such hotbeds for paranormal activity, we have to look at the sheer trauma embedded in the soil. During the early 20th century, the landscape of Tennessee was reshaped by steam, concrete, and iron. The establishment of the Tennessee Valley Authority in 1933 aimed to solve devastating regional flooding, bring electricity to isolated valleys, and stimulate economic growth. But the creation of these massive reservoirs required a profound sacrifice. Consider the town of Lewiston, located in Union County. Founded in the early 19th century around an iron foundry built by John Loy, Lewiston was a bustling trade center. By 1935, it had 70 residents, general stores, a barbershop, and a school. Today, Lewiston is gone, drowned beneath the mile-wide Lewiston Sea of Norris Lake, held back by the concrete Lewiston Dike. Further down the Clinch River lay Big Barren, another community lost in the reservoir. Long before the dam, Big Barren was already defined by water. In August 1916, a cloudburst caused Thompson's Mill Dam to fail, sending a wall of water down the valley that claimed 24 lives. Decades later, the valley was filled permanently, as if fulfilling an old, watery destiny. And then there was Baker's Forge in Campbell County. The old Baker's Forge Cemetery, known as Disinterment Cemetery No. 240, was cleared of 5,226 graves and relocated to the new Barker's Forge Memorial Cemetery. Along the relocated was Private Henry Ridner, a veteran of the Revolutionary War Virginia line. Yet many unmarked graves were left behind on the shoreline, marked only with crude field stones. Finally, look to the northeastern mountains to the town of Butler, the town that wouldn't drown. Named after Roderick R. Butler, a Union cavalry leader, the town was submerged in 1948. But before the waters rose to create what is now known as Watauga Lake, the determined townspeople relocated around 175 buildings to higher ground. By relocating their churches, schools, homes, and businesses, the community survived the submersion of their old valley. The geography of loss descends next to the Little Tennessee River, where the completion of the Citico Dam in 1979 sparked fierce legal battles and flooded a deeply sacred landscape. Among the submerged sites was Morganton, once a thriving 19th century flatboat port. During the Civil War, Union General William T. Sherman crossed here, dismantling unoccupied houses to build a pontoon bridge. Today, only the hilltop of Morganton Cemetery remains above the waters of Citico Lake. But the deepest wounds of the Citico project involve the Overhill Cherokee Nation. The reservoir flooded the historic towns of Chota and Tanasi. Tanasi, the capital from 1721 to 1730, and namesake to the state of Tennessee, was first recorded on Henry Timberlake's 1762 map. Chota, the great Cherokee mother town, was home to the diplomat Atacolacola, who traveled to London in 1730 and spent years captured in Canada, mastering the art of imperial diplomacy. Today, the circular 8-pillar Chota Memorial stands above the water, marking where the remains of War Chief Okonostota were reinterred. Further down the same lake, outside the Sequoia Birthplace Museum, a burial mound holds the remains of 191 Cherokee ancestors disturbed by the rising reservoir. When analyzing local paranormal activity, we must consider the weight of what was taken from these communities to potentially understand the activity's origins. Families packing their lives into wagons and trucks, deceased family members were exhumed and relocated, or worse, forgotten. Consider the town of Willow Grove. Nestled along Iron Creek in Clay County, settled before 1785 by 5 pioneer families from New York, it was drowned not by the TVA, but by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. On July 18, 1942, the residents gathered on the school grounds for a final, heartbreaking farewell picnic. Decades later, during the winter drawdown, the concrete foundations of that very schoolhouse can be seen, eerily lurking beneath the pristine water. Paranormal researchers often note that residual hauntings are triggered by intense emotional trauma. The creation of these lakes didn't just alter the geography. It generated a massive burst of displacement, anger, and grief. Across the valleys of Tennessee, thousands of families were forced to pack up their lives and abandon their ancestral homes to the encroaching waters. That kind of spiritual scar doesn't just wash away. So far, we have only discussed the historical aspects of our tale, but what comes next is local folklore. Stories shared from rocking chairs and over campfires. Stories of strange lights dancing over the reservoirs, of the muffled tolling of church bells carrying through the deep water on quiet nights, and voices calling out from the mist hanging on the water. Is it the acoustic properties of water carrying the sounds from distant shores, or are the voices memories of lives once lived? Deep in the woods of Rocky Flats, the moss-covered stone chimneys of a 1920s homestead stands like a gravestone. Campers report sudden chilling cold spots and disembodied voices whispering warnings from the leaves, telling them to leave the site. Along Jeffrey's Hell Trail, hikers navigate dense tunnels where Ebenezer Jeffrey disappeared in the 1920s while searching for his lost hunting hounds. Unseen hands are said to violently shake the bushes as travelers pass. On the Stiff Knee Trail and Double Camp Road, legends whisper of a stone-throwing, goblin-like entity. Campers at Far Gap once fled into the night, abandoning all their gear after a violent hail of rocks pelted their tent. On Brush Mountain, the overgrown ruins of a 1920s lumber camp mark where many loggers perished in a catastrophic forest fire in 1925. Their spirits are said to wander the ridges in eternal unrest. And at the end of the vine-choked trail at Old Crowder Orchard, a pale figure of a young girl in a white gown glides through the decaying apple trees, staring back at those who watch her for too long. Maybe the knowledge of the land's past has spooked the local community and it's all in their heads. Or maybe the mountains remember what was lost. The final account of the night is a reported personal experience from the historic spaces of Hendersonville in Sumner County. At the property historically known as One Man's Treasure, residents reported a series of unsettling events. A heavy bedroom door that would repeatedly open and slam shut on its own, and scratching noises in the walls. In the same region, near Wilson Hall, multiple accounts describe a hostile, red-eyed entity lurking near the locked doors of the bell tower. Psychologists and skeptics will point to logical explanations: sleep paralysis, stress, environmental acoustics, and the power of suggestion. Yet, these regional accounts continue to make people wonder if there's more to the story. Perhaps ghosts aren't always spirits. Maybe sometimes they are memories. Perhaps they are people and places refusing to be forgotten. Before you go, do you know of a local legend? A tale of a nearby haunted house, or maybe something you yourself still can't explain. Give me a holler. Send your story to MyHollerStory@gmail.com, and your encounter might be featured in a future episode of Eerie Encounters, First-Hand Frights. And remember, your story doesn't have to come from the Great Smoky Mountains. If you've experienced something strange, unexplained, paranormal, or just plain unsettling, I'd love to hear your story. Next week, I'm especially excited about our episode because I will be sharing my first listener-submitted story. So make sure you're following so you don't miss which haunted holler we visit next. New episodes drop weekends on Spotify and wherever you listen to podcasts. As always, I'll have all of our episode sources and further reading linked in the show notes, if you're brave enough to delve deeper into the shadows. And if you'd like to support the show, you can find my website in the description. Your likes, follows, and shares help more than you know. The mountains and rivers of Appalachia have always carried stories. Long before the dams, long before the lakes, these valleys belonged to generations of people who called them home. And maybe beneath the quiet water, there are stories that are still yearning to be told. This has been Haunted Hollers and Eerie Encounters. Thank you for listening and for stepping with me into the shadows of Appalachia. Until next time, stay out of the lakes and hollers after dark.